Now, King Von had this thing where his music didn't feel like music. It felt like footage, like you were watching something happen, not just hearing about it. And whether everything he said was real or not, people treated it like it was. They picked sides, argued in the comments, followed it like a TV show. And that's the part that's hard to ignore, because at a certain point, it stopped being about the music. It became about something else, something that started bleeding into how people think, how they move, and how they speak, especially younger people. And when you zoom out and really look at the bigger picture, what's being consumed, how people react to it, what it all turns into, it almost feels like we're watching a social experiment in real time. Nobody agreed to it, but here we are. Now, for anyone who isn't familiar with King Von, he was a 26-year-old rapper from Chicago, and what made him stand out wasn't just the music. It was how real what he was rapping about felt, the way he told stories, the detail, the specificity. It felt like he wasn't just rapping, he was reporting. And whether he actually lived everything he talked about, that's been debated since he died in 2020. But honestly, that almost doesn't even matter, because people believed it, and that belief is where things start to get interesting. Fast forward a few years, especially after the pandemic, and something just feels different. You can see it. Crimes feel more brazen, more violent than ever, and it feels like we've been desensitized to the severity of what's going on in society. And yeah, people will point to the economic uncertainty and or socioeconomic factors, which are very much real, and those things do play a role. But I don't think people talk enough about what's being televised on these phones, because that's where a lot of people are learning how to see the world now. And for young people still figuring themselves out, that hits different. Real life violence has basically become gamified. And when that happens, people stop treating real lives like they actually matter. People stop valuing life the way they should. And that's when you have to take a step back and really look at what's being consumed. Because a lot of what young people are exposed to is presented as content. But if you really look at it, it starts to feel more like instructions on how to move, how to respond, how to carry yourself. And that's the reality that's being broadcasted. And that word broadcast has always been very interesting to me, because originally it came from agriculture. It meant spreading seeds across a large area, planting something and letting it grow. But over time, that word got picked up by media, radio, television, used to describe sending out signals in the form of programs to millions of people at once. And the man behind the radio, Guglielmo Marconi, believed this kind of technology would actually bring people closer together. He personally even believed that it would make war impossible, because once people can communicate, there's less reason for conflict in the first place. But when you look at society now, it almost feels like the opposite happened, because instead of just spreading information, instead of connecting people the way it was meant to, it's being used to influence them. And not all of that influence is good. And if you really think about it, we're still broadcasting, but now it's not just seeds anymore. It's ideas, behavior, ways of looking at the world. And when that reaches people who are still figuring themselves out, it doesn't just stay on a screen, it grows.
You know, everybody need a little help on their way to being, self-reliant. Everybody need a little something and they to be independent. No independent person just grew up and was born independent. And you learn cooperation and unity and struggle, and then you became independent. And we have to teach that and instill that. And why is it that they want to do that?
And that's really the point. Nobody just becomes who they are out of nowhere. They see it, internalize it, and over time it becomes part of their programming. That's what happens when something isn't just watched. It's repeated, reinforced, and normalized. And when that's coming straight from a screen, a device you carry with you everywhere, that's when things start to shift. Because at a certain point, it stops feeling like content and it feels like reality. And for a lot of people, it is their reality. But what kind of reality is it? And that's where it gets dangerous, because obviously, life ain't a Scarface movie. There are real consequences to your actions. And for people figuring themselves out, they're not just watching, it's something they step into. And over time, the line between what's entertainment and what's real life becomes blurry. When you look at it like that, it's almost like a religion now. But this didn't start with King Von. This has been building. The streets have always existed. But the difference now is how visible everything is. There was a time where you actually had to be outside to see all this. Now, it's in your pocket. Think about early Worldstar, those viral fight videos. Nobody was calling it content back then, it was just footage. Because there's something about raw reality that pulls people in. At that point, beef wasn't just something you heard about. It was something you watched unfold in real time, with receipts, with responses, and a comment section full of people picking sides like it was a sport. And the more visible it got, the more it got fed. Because the internet doesn't just document culture, it amplifies it. It rewards what gets the most reactions. And what gets the most reactions is usually the most extreme version of whatever is happening. So the streets didn't just get more visible, they got a platform. And once that happened, everything changed. It was really once social media took over that it turned into something else entirely. It became an arena, almost like Rome back in the day, when crowds would sit and watch these brutal fights play out in front of them. Something happens when you grow up watching this. Like, even if you've never been in that situation yourself, you kind of already know how it's supposed to go. You know the language, you know the energy, the response, because you've seen it play out 100 times on your screen. And that's when the content becomes a guide for how to behave in real life. Not because somebody told them to act like that, but because that's just what's been normalized. And young people especially, they're still building their identity, still figuring out who they are and what they stand for. And if the loudest, most visible thing in their world is this, then that becomes the reference point. That becomes what cool looks like, what respect looks like, what power looks like. And you start to see it everywhere, and how people move, how conflicts play out. It's not even a conscious thing, it gets absorbed naturally through the subconscious mind. And that's why King Von is so important in this conversation, not just through the music, but how his life played out. People weren't just fans, they were watching him like a character. And we saw what happened there, not only to him personally, but a lot of the young people watching this were taking sides because they saw how his life was playing out online, not fully understanding the weight behind it. Because to them, it doesn't feel serious, it feels normal. And that's the part that people miss. It's not about copying rappers, it's about copying the environment. Because now it's not survival, it's identity based. I need to be seen, to matter. And when that chaos looks like the fastest way to get that, people run toward it. But here's the thing, a lot of this is built on illusion. The image is real, the influence is real, the consequences are real. But what people are consuming, that's a product that's been packaged through the lifestyle, being sold to the masses.
Now they seem like they're making it cool to be drinking lean and syrup.
So why sign an artist that would promote that?
She asked me talent or issues, and I said talent.
You don't think that's hypocritical though? You're saying the
it's
opioid problem's a problem.
opportunistic. Yeah, I got people to feed.
And what's crazy is people have become numb to it. Violence isn't shocking anymore. Have you noticed that? And sure, it's always existed. It's always been a part of life. But before, it wasn't this visible. It wasn't this in your face. Now, it's curated through the feed, repeated through the algorithm, and fed to people for consumption, for profit, every single day. And socially, that starts to do something to people. You ever had a moment where a stranger approaches you, and the first thing that pops in your head is, what does this person want? Not even based on anything they did or said, just off instinct. That right there, that's what this turns into. A kind of quiet distrust, where you're always a little on edge, always reading between the lines, always questioning people's intentions. And yeah, that's a protective instinct. It's supposed to protect you, right? It's your brain trying to keep you safe. But when that becomes your default, it starts to shape how you see everybody. And it may not seem connected at first, but it is. Because when you're constantly exposed to violence, even just watching it, it doesn't just stay on a screen. It changes what you expect from people and the world. And the people behind us, they know exactly what they're doing.
You talk about music that's going out there right now. Are you talking about any particular type of music? Think is such a positive influence?
Well, it's very obvious when you hear words and lyrics, whether they enlighten or discourage.
Okay, so hip-hop gets slammed a lot. Marilyn Manson gets slammed, Korn gets slammed. A lot of those acts that are, out there putting, is that what we're talking about?
It's not what I'm talking about.
No?
I'm just talking about the truth.
Just general?
Yeah. The truth is that you either are here to enlighten or discourage.
But more important than what Prince said, what are people actually connecting to? Because this isn't just about a few individuals. It's about a mindset. And when that mindset gets repeated enough, normalized enough, consumed enough, it doesn't just shape the culture. It starts shaping the people in it. And that's what makes this feel like a social experiment. Curious what you guys think about this topic. I feel like this is one of those things that you don't really think about. You don't really think about the effect, but once you start seeing the effect and you start paying attention to it, you kind of start to see it everywhere. Y'all let me know in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace, I'm out.